Hi, Nick Veach here. Today's episode is Ode to a Salon Pedophile, or Why to Be or Not to Be was Always in Question. This is an episode about pedophilia in the public prints and why the admission of a guilty pleasure is not tantamount to washing your hands of it. Not by a long chalk. I'll introduce you to some of the sophistry that pedophiles engage in to persuade themselves and the dupes in their orbit that they know much more about children than you, because they obsess about them so much, which is why they should be in charge of your kids and not you. They're serious. You're not to be trusted. No, really. Having said that, I have no problem with articles about or authored by pedophiles. It's an issue of public interest. It should be out there. And I'm pretty much a free speech absolutist. It is better to have all of our discussions out in the open rather than to push the heterodox into the shadows. So, for instance, we have this Salon article here called Meet Pedophiles Who Mean Well. It starts out with Nick Devon is a happily married man in his mid-60s with 4 grown children. I have advanced degrees, he says, from prestigious universities, a very good job, a lot of friends, and are well respected in my community. He wrote this on his website. In short, I have a very good life. However, he's also a pedophile. While he experiences some attraction to adult women, he only fantasizes about pubescent boys, and none of his family or friends know. He says he's never acted on his desire, though. And Devon is the co-founder of a new organization for men like himself, Virtuous Pedophiles. We do not choose to be attracted to children, and we cannot make that attraction go away. But we can resist the temptation to abuse children sexually, and many of us present no danger to children whatsoever. Yeah, many of us. The goal of the organization is to offer support to pedophiles who want to live virtuously and to raise public awareness about the fact that such pedophiles exist. And I agree with that, and I agree with an article on this subject matter. I think it's great. But the problem comes down to, the issue I'm addressing here in particular is the issue that even if that's true, and it probably is, that some people are pedophiles in spirit only and don't actually act on their, I was going to say principles, but act on their desires. The question is, how do you distinguish who will and who will not? Okay. For example, many offenders are not upfront about their violations at all. For instance, let's meet Sarah Nyberg. This is a Breitbart article. This is an unflattering picture, or perhaps it is a flattering picture. This is an article written by Milo Yiannopoulos, way back in 2015. Hello, Milo. Anyway, this gentle person, leading Gamergate critic Sarah Nyberg, was a progressive activist who was quoted by the Washington Post and whose writing has been featured in Ravishingly and Boing Boing. Sarah Nyberg, a transsexual formerly living as Nicholas Nyberg, sometimes known as Sarah Butts, that's charming, is a well-known critic of the Gamergate movement. That's kind of telling in and of itself right there. The Gamergate movement, in case you're not familiar with it, was basically a rejection of claims made by the largely male gamer population of baseless charges made by a couple of scheming feminists who wanted to make a name for themselves by picking on what they mistakenly presumed to be a soft target. Having successfully attacked comic books and other preserves of the nerd kingdom, they went after video gamers. The problem is that comic book readers are passive, whereas video gamers are proactive, aggressive, high energy. Not to mention they're especially adept at solving problems, because that's of course what games are all about. You're solving problems all the time at a high speed and at a competitive level. So when the feminists made the charges that the video games were anti-feminist, anti-female, sexist, and that video game players were women-hating nerds, they had their hands full immediately and ended up losing the battle quite quickly. You'll recall how the same sort of grifter psychopaths went after PewDiePie after he made a couple of anti-National Socialist jokes, which was then spun as him being a pro-National Socialist. Kind of the same. I mention this just because it's just good to keep an eye on where people are morally or ethically. I mean, you can't look at the Gamergate movement and not, if you're a normal human being, if you're not a psychopath, if you don't have a vested interest in kind of demonetizing websites like PewDiePie because you want to substitute. I mean, one of the theories as to why PewDiePie was targeted by, I believe it was by the Wall Street Journal, was because at the time he had like over 50 million subscribers, and mainstream media wanted to make a go at making money on YouTube because they're failing on the traditional broadcast channels. And so what they wanted to do was clear the deck of competitors, people like PewDiePie. So they commissioned a hit piece article on him, or if they didn't commission it, then they certainly didn't object to it when it showed up. Anyway, So you have Sarah Nyberg, and it turns out that leaked chat logs from the Final Fantasy Shrine forums, a website that was then owned by Nyberg, show how he actually condoned consensual sex between adults and children as young as age 6. How he openly fantasized about sex play with underage girls, including somebody that they're giving the moniker of Alice as opposed to disclose her real name. Many of the links that FF Shrine was but they were previously publicly available are gone because of a bunch of takedown requests by Nyberg and his supporters. Well, it's now her apparently. But a lot of this stuff was still uncovered. So here's Breitbart has obtained the full archives of all the logs. Okay, so here you have the kind of thing, here's Sarah Nyberg. I'm a submissive male to female transsexual pedophile that's fond of age play and penis girls that really misses the person, Alice. Elsewhere on the FF Shrine logs, Nyberg jokes, if you're not willing to hook up with an 11-year-old, you're an ageist, we hate you, and you need to leave. Nyberg told the chat room that she feared pedophilia might run in the family because her father's dating someone 10 years younger, and because her brother's girlfriend isn't legal. And then let's see. I don't want to keep belaboring this, but Nyberg joked about using FF Shrine as a grooming forum. We use FF Shrine to lure unsuspecting kiddies into our gingerbread house, she writes at one point. But there are also signs that she wasn't joking, as elsewhere in the logs she says, other girls at FF Shrine have talked to me about really young masturbation stuff in private. And if you just follow this dialogue, for example, Sarah, this Nyberg, I don't like babies or toddlers generally. Chewy, be nice to them, because when they grow up they may be attractive. Somebody else, Meth. And I didn't think that you were that fussy. Chewy, by grown up I mean ages 6 to 12. And then Sarah, I used to think 5, 6, 7 was too young, but because of Alice, I totally changed my mind. Pretty grim stuff, Grim because, of course, we non-pedophiles have a very, very real problem with sexualizing children. But as I hinted above, such an opinion is apparently ill-informed, for it lacks sufficient, believe it or not, expertise, and we know the left loves their experts. And who are the experts, by the way? Well, they're the pedophiles, as you'll see. It's like the old gag about psychology, that it's a discipline in which people who love to abuse nuts are the very ones in charge of the asylum. Okay, here's an article from Vice. Let me introduce you to Todd Nickerson. This is apparently supposed to be a flattering photograph, although I don't see how in Hades that is supposed to make him look good. It makes him look like a total crook. But anyway, Todd Nickerson is attracted to children but says he's never abused one. And the article starts out with, ta-da! Todd Nickerson is a 43-year-old virgin. Oh, nice lead. Pretty anodyne. And then Nickerson is a pedophile. By definition, it means he is sexually aroused by prepubescent children. In this case, girls. However, Nickerson tells Vice it does not mean he is a child molester, and he stresses that he has never and never will act on his desires. I kind of had to get over a lot of society's BS, he says. This idea that you're doomed to offend, he says in the phone interview. I had to say, no, man, you're not. You have control over that. We're not slaves to our hormones. And he continues, there are people who are pedophilic. They know they're attracted to children and never touch a child, never download any kind of child pornography. They never break any kind of law. Oops, this is James Cantor. I should go back into my normal voice. A Toronto-based clinical psychologist and sexual behavior scientist who's been studying pedophilia for 20 years. Okay, let me go back over this. This is worth lingering on. There are people who are pedophilic. They know they're attracted to children and never touch a child, never download any kind of child pornography. They never break any kind of law. But, the expert says, it also works the other way around. There are people who are child molesters. They actually committed crimes and victimized someone even though they sexually prefer adults. These people are sometimes referred to as surrogate sex offenders, Cantor explains, who use children to replace an adult sexual partner. And this is kind of, I understand he has expertise in a field, and he needs to be very specific in terms of his, what you call tabulating the different types of people, the kind of thing. But what this often kind of devolves into is this kind of excess information, and people become overwhelmed, and they just want a kind of decision, and they think, and they hear the cataloging of types, the typology, and then they presume, well, it's safe to turn over the decision making to this guy, the expert. Okay. Well, okay. Alright, I'm back. Man, it's like, how come every time I want to do a 5-minute video, it turns into like a 15-minute talk fest, man? It's crazy. All right. Let me just kind of reiterate. What I was getting at basically was they present you with an increasing amount of information. You don't understand what people are talking about. That's the idea. I wouldn't take that kind of what do you call it, passive approach. I always want to understand what's going on, but most people don't. Anyway, so what he's saying is there are child molesters who do molest, child molesters who don't. How do you make a decision about what's going on? Okay, we need to call in the experts. Please, please, please tell me what to think. I need an expert, and who would that be? Okay. But before we get to that, to my mind, somebody who's been forthright with you about their addiction does not at all equate to trusting that person to no longer pursue the very same addiction. So, for instance, an alcoholic coming forward and admitting their abuse of booze is not somebody you are going to entrust the keys to the liquor cabinet. Okay, or someone on heroin and who's down and out admitting their addiction is not somebody to whom you're going to lend a Benjamin with any expectation of seeing it back in your hot and sweaty hands anytime soon. We all have addictions to food, to sex, to social interaction, to sports, to whatever. I mean, I'm addicted to breathing oxygen, amongst other things. Do you expect me to give up respiration anytime soon? Anyways, everything's just so complicated. We need a real expert anyway. Okay, back to the marathon. So you remember this dude, Todd Nickerson, right? The charmer here. Okay, he's a 43-year-old virgin, according to the author, Manisha Krishnan. This is of 2017. Right? The idea that you're doomed to offend is society's BS, he said in a phone interview. We're not slaves to our hormones. Okay, so I was just making the point that, just because you're forthright about having an addiction does not mean that you're in control of the addiction. Not at all. It can just be kind of a way of kind of taking people's guard down. There's a whole modus operandi going on here, which I'll get into at the tail end of the video. Okay, so he says he's a virgin, doesn't do anything. Right, has an expression like that on his face. Do you trust this guy? I don't care what he's in. If he's in the real estate industry or whatever, man, or if he's selling insurance, stocks. That's just the worst picture, man. Anyway, okay. So this is an article from Medium. This is Reginald Harper. Can we really believe salon writer Todd Nickerson when he asserts that he would never act on his urges? And he says, for example, this is Nickerson. For better or worse, mostly worse, we have this sexuality, and unlike with most sexualities, there is no ethical way we can fully actualize our sexual longings. Yeah, okay. However, over the years, Nickerson has written quite a bit about pedophilia online under the username Markaba 2.0. He has never hidden behind internet anonymity, having identified himself by his full name on the forum. And he writes, "My goal is to protect children from harm, not from sex." Oh, that's interesting. That sets off a few alarm bells. Society believes these two things are pretty much one and the same in the case of children. There's ample evidence that this is untrue. I see we're now leaning into the science. It's all about the science, you see? So we need experts. Again, this is the thing with the left. They love their experts because they're A, they're intellectually lazy, and B, they're like school children. They're basically the apple polishing nerds of school. They're Lisa Simpson from The Simpsons. These people they're grotesquely, insufficiently cynical. Anyway, there's ample evidence, that this is untrue, and that in fact society itself generates much of the harm. Oh, it's society that traumatizes kids when they're raped. Oh, or molested. Oh, I see. Right, blame the victim. If not the victim, then the helper. Anyway, the writer says this is the typical progressive argument. People aren't scarred by moral actions, they're just scarred by societal attitudes. Yeah, okay. Section 2, you're going to love this, baby. Children want and need pedophiles. Oh. I believe that children need us as much as we need them. That there is an evolutionary aspect to our orientation that is yet to be determined, though I have several theories. An evolutionary aspect. Oh, you see, it's scientific. You see, science can account for this. Not only can it account for this, but as you can see where this is going if you have a legal mind. My father's a lawyer, so he starts out saying there's an evolutionary aspect to this. This is first going to become the basis for explaining it, and then if that what he's going to do next, he's going to say this is why it has been done, why it should be done, and ultimately why he needs to do it. That's where this is going. Okay, if you have an experience with this kind of sophistry, as I do, this is definitely where it's going. And for the pedophile, I would advocate that this is our evolutionary purpose. Oh, I see. It's our evolutionary purpose. So again, we've jumped from the explanation of pedophilia to the proactive. I was evolved to do this. That's his argument now. Therefore, since evolution has placed him in this position, you should get out of the way and let him do it. This is from the guy who says he's a virgin. Still believe it? For the pedophile, he writes, Nickerson writes, I supply that this is our evolutionary purpose, or one of them, to provide children with a bridge between the child world and the adult world. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. To allow them to practice relationships and sex safely. Oh yeah, it's for them. We're helping the kids. You're not helping yourself. No, you're helping the kids. Right. Okay. Children do seem to know intuitively when one of us is around. Yeah, they run away. From the crazy uncle, and all that pent up curiosity about sex and adult bodies and romance manifests when we're around. Sometimes rather quickly and persistently, as was the case with Jay. So he's a virgin, huh? It keeps going, which is why he says he stressed time and time again that he believes it is imperative to allow the child to take the lead. In his situation with Jay, she came on to me. Oh, is that how it worked? In her naive but rather aggressive way. Rather obviously for a prolonged amount of time. I mean over days. She obviously given her desire a lot of thought. It was both to be touched by me and to touch me in return. Okay, I had to take a drink break there. Excuse me. In fact, Nickerson writes, he would argue that it's actually beneficial for the child. I will reiterate my swimming metaphor here. Society preventing children from engaging in sex play and romance play is akin to preventing them from learning to swim. And if you don't do this, it's like when a child turns 18 or so, it's like taking them to the ocean and tossing them in, shouting, well, you're on your own, damn it. That's what society does to children in the name of protecting them. See, so society's harming children by not allowing him to be a sexual predator and rape your kids. It gets even better. This is why when people say things like, how can pedophiles be a good judge of my child's readiness for sex? Well, I find such statements or questions to be ironic at best. I can turn it around and ask, well, how can parents who have a vested interest in controlling their children be a good judge of whether their children are ready? That's right. You're not the best judge of your kids. He is. Why? Yes, he does. I do believe, he says, we pedophiles have more empathy for children than the average parent does, and as such, I do believe we are better judges, on average, of what children can and cannot handle, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. Anyway, alright. So to wrap this up, did you catch his modus operandi? I think I've kind of stated it, but here's how it works. Number one, I'm a virgin, I'm a pedophile, but I've never had sex and would never want to have sex with children. That's what he writes, or claims. But then he turns it around and he goes, however, if you think about it, his obsession with kids is what makes him an expert on them. And here are the reasons grounded in science and logic why he actually knows your kids better than you do and understands them better than you do. Which leads to point 3, which is like, well, after all, when I come to think of it, maybe he should have sex with children. Maybe it's an obligation to have sex with children. Your children. Evolution made him this way. Okay? It's for their own good. Right? That's his modus operandi. First, he fakes. I don't know nothing. Second, but let's give it a fair hearing. Third, I have to do it, and you're not, and you're getting in the way of evolution and science and logic and good faith in stopping me from doing it. Right? This guy's a sociopath. Right? Anyway, scam. I guess that pretty much wraps it up. all I can say then is, be very careful around these kinds of arguments, no matter what they are, no matter who's making them, because people are often going to do this kind of thing. Politicians do this all the time. They pretend not to want the office. I have no political ambitions whatsoever. No, not me. I just want to retire, right? And then it's like, you want to nominate me? Well, if there's anybody else, okay, I guess I'll do it. And then they manufacture all these reasons why they're the best person for the job, and then they run wholehearted for the election, and they sling money at their opponents and all the rest of it. It's the same game, right? Which is we often expect kind of sociopathic behavior from politicians as well. When you see they engage in exactly the same game, they pretend not to want something. That's the first thing. Then they manufacture the reasons. Then they go whole hog in for the thing, and you better get the hell out of the way, or else. That's the attitude, right? Anyway, all right. Hope I made my point. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard today, please hit the subscribe button. I'm Nick Veach, and I will catch you again soon. Bye-bye.